Hello everybody, welcome to the next video. This is going to be part 4 of our look into Operation Tonga. Parts 1 to 3, which we did last week, was all about the planning stage, and we've got ourselves now to RAF Tarrant Rushton in Dorset. So what we're looking at here then is the plan of today would be to move to taking the actual operation that happened on June the 5th, flying from RAF Tarrant Rushton, inserting into Normandy, and we'll see if we can attempt to do the glider drop from the coast there. So let's start off. We're talking about the 5th and 6th of June here, and what we're going to do is we're going to fly into here, and we'll see if we can get this plan. RAF Tarrant Rushton is just to the west of Blandford Forum, which is in Dorset. It's around here somewhere. There you go, you can see it there. So we'll set our departure for here, just there, and we will be going to just bear with me, I'm just having a little bit of putting some audio into my ears so I can hear myself a little bit. Okay, so that's better. So we'll be flying to Pegasus Bridge now. It's not, I might have to just change these conditions for now. Let's come off here. I think we're talking some broken clouds. We might as well do this now. The date, obviously it was June the 6th, but the most important thing is that it was a full moon, and I believe in 2026, because this doesn't go back as far, it's about the 30th of June would probably be about right. Still can't quite see. Okay, here we go. Oh, where are we? Where are we going? There we go. This is the spot here we're aiming for. So this will be our arrival. So on this 5th of June, we're talking about Major John Howard's D Company of the 2nd Ox Bucks, light infantry, and they were attached to think it was 7th Para Brigade underneath Brigadier Nigel Poet, and in turn they were with under General Windy Gale of the 6th Airborne Division, and they were tasked to capture the bridges at Benouville and Ranville in Normandy. This route is actually not one they took. There's a private, Dennis Edwards, who wrote a book later about his escapades, and he said that when they took off from RAF Tarrant Rushton, the Halifax bombers that were towing them actually headed to the northeast towards Reading, and he describes how that was designed so that they would meet up with other bombing formations, and so that the gliders could be inserted into these formations, so it wasn't so obvious that there was an invasion going on. When you look at the actual map, he also describes how they came across the coast somewhere between Bognor Regis and Worthing, and having had a look at this route, what it makes sense to me, now I'm not saying that this actually happened, but is they probably flew yes to the northwest. I'm not saying that they went necessarily to Reading, but I think they would have gone towards another airfield. And the reason for that is the airfield could have radio beacons on it. There could be visual signaling, so they could signal to the formations, where they are at night, to form up. So it makes sense that they would head towards an airfield. They're a little bit easier to spot. So I believe that they might have flown towards Farnborough, and the reason why, so we just add this and I'll show you in a second, is that then they would have turned right 90 degrees. So what you want when you're flying these missions and you've got so many aircraft is you don't want complicated navigation. You need to keep it as simple as possible. So this makes it could be therefore that they then went straight from Farnborough across Bognor Regis airfield, and that is a straight shot then, because you can use Bognor Regis straight shot into the bridge. Now I don't think they would be aiming straight for the bridge like that. They would probably want to be coming in so that they can see the estuary of the Orne at Ouistreham, and possibly the estuary of the Divers-sur-Mer here. If they can see this, then they would likely, that would probably be a good place to go. Now, so what I think makes more sense is that they probably went to Shoreham, or headed towards Shoreham. The reason being, then, this makes a 90-degree leg. So you go from RAF Tarrant Rushton here, you go up to Farnborough, right to 90 degrees, head for Shoreham, and now you're on a south trajectory. This means it's a lot easier to follow. You've also got the moon, out, so the moon would probably be in the south at this time of year. So you've got a few things aiding you across, and that looks probably better. Now, I don't think they went direct to the bridges, but they probably tried to go direct to this where the River Orne exits into the channel. So I would say it's probably likely they would try to aim straight for this. So let's put a leg there. Keeps it sort of south, and I think then, from what I've read in some accounts, the RAF had identified an area around Carborg, which is this place here. They had identified a gap in the air defences of the Germans. I'm not saying it was an actual gap, but there was probably air defences here. This is Merville. We got the Merville battery around this area, and we've also got the port of Divers here. So it makes sense that there will be likely to possibly to be a gap in this area here. And so this point, I believe, would be the release point. So I think they will fly south, identify these two estuaries, aiming between them, and then they would be they would go into a box pattern. Now I believe they were looking out for possibly this wood. I'm not sure if this is the same. This wood would still be there in that time, but they will do likely head south. And they were on a stopwatch at this point, and then a 90-degree to hit the river, and then back to the bridge and the landing. So I believe that they would probably be heading down to somewhere here. They'll do a 90-degree to the river, somewhere about here, and then identify their landing zone. That to me would probably be what would happen. So let's get into the aircraft. We can then sort out the weather when we're up there and see if we can get it to look good. Without any further ado, now one thing, time-wise, they Howard, I think he synchronized watches around about 10:40 something at 10:40 on the evening of the 5th, then told everyone to get on board. They took off at 10:56. So we'll start off in the day, and we're going to switch it to night when we're up and running. The actual flight time, it's about 11 o'clock when they did take off, and they arrive at about 20 past, a quarter past midnight. Flight time's about 45 minutes. So, but they would have had a period over RAF Rushton where they formed up. Okay, let's get into the sim. Okay, so this is RAF Rushton. As you can see, it's disused now, but you can definitely make out the runways. We've got a runway here in a southeast to northwest direction. There's another runway you can spot here, which is more sort of west-east. And there's usually a third one. Most of these RAF ones had 3. And it looks like it was here in almost a north-south direction. This in April 1944. This is where the glider-borne pilots were practicing. The D Company were put into 6 gliders towed by Halifaxes. Each of the gliders had 2 pilots, so there were 12 NCOs. They weren't officers. They tended to be with the RAF. The sergeants and stuff flew the gliders, and these gliders were the Horsa gliders. They could take about 30 troops, including the pilots. They had a wingspan of 88 feet. Length was about 67 feet. And they could take about 7,000 kilos of weight. So they could take a couple of jeeps, some artillery guns. But on this occasion, they're dropping 6 loads of 28 men. They would practice here for, I think they carried out something in the region of 54 training sorties in an operation that the operation, they were practicing for the operation called Operation Dead Stick, which was the insertion part of Operation Tonga for the gliders. They would use stopwatches to practice, so from the release point they would know how long they had to fly and what speed, and so the co-pilot will be calling out the times, and then they would do a series of 90-degree turns to get onto target. They would use goggles, dark goggles, to make them so they could fly during the day and practice if it was night. And they practice in all conditions, day and night, all different weather. They were highly prized, these glider pilots, to the point where they were given orders direct from Montgomery, Bernard Montgomery, which was basically to say that these guys weren't to be used to capture stuff or to fight. They, once they've done their job, they were to make their way back to the beaches, the landing beaches, and with these orders they would basically be put on a boat and sent back to the UK, because they were so highly prized as pilots. Yeah, so that's RAF Rushton. So whilst we're here, let me just say, if you want to help produce the show, come along and join the Discord, which is here. Let me just... This is where I put all the information that I'm going to talk about and all the research, and you can come along and stick questions or facts on there. And I'll when I get to the section, I'll read it out. I'll try to keep up to date with the information on the board, and so you can follow along. So on this Discord, you can come down. You'll see all these different forums that I've created. You won't be able to create a forum, but you will be able to look into it and comment on the posts. So this, for example, is D-Day, and you can come on to the timeline. You can click on the first one, and it will give you a time. So, for example, we could just read this out here. June the 5th. So John Howard's D Company is sealed into the transit camp here at Rushton, Tarrant Rushton, and they're given fatless meals to cope with air sickness. And they're loaded onto 6 Horsa gliders. Gliders 1 to 3 are destined for the Cairn Canal Bridge. Glider 1 will be taking Major John Howard himself. And gliders 4 to 6 will be headed to the River Orne Bridge. The gliders, the Halifax bombers, is the ones that were taking them. They're painted in. They're all painted in these white, black and white stripes, Allied stripes, so that they don't get shot at by friendly aircraft and ships. Let's just get the plane going, because it's going to be a bit of a flight, and we can talk about this on the way. Now, if you just excuse me, I'm gonna try to set up this autopilot. I'm gonna do it now as it's paused, because it can be a bit sensitive. So we're gonna put it on nav. And we know we're going to go to 6,000 feet to begin with. Okay, let's just see if this works. I'm just going to move. Why is that not going up? Oh dear. See, this is why. Bang! One of the reasons why I do this live is so that you know it's not done by AI. Right, let's just pause there to try and get this thing. try and get this thing on to a course. Let's try putting it into heading mode. If I point it south, it should pick up. Oh, we're going around again, aren't we? What the hell? Okay, so are we going the right way? We'll keep an eye on that. Alright, well, we're not going the right way. We need to be going... I can't remember which one of these knobs. Ah, I think it's this one actually. Okay, let's try. I think it's this way. Let's try going that way. We will get there in the end. Okay, so we... let's go this way. So they took off at 10:56. By the time they managed to sort out their modern day autopilot, the war was over. Let's just increase this range here. Okay, we should now pick up the course. And we're at 6,000 feet. So let's we just make sure we just pick up this GPS signal. Hopefully it will. So yes, these gliders are pulled by Halifaxes. They're 4-engine bombers, similar to Lancaster, and they they're going to head north east, pick up another a series of bombing raids that are going in on D-Day, and these Halifax bombers will then perform their primary duty, which is to deliver the gliders, and then they will carry on then and do a bombing run up on the cement works to the northeast of Caen, just to make it look like it's just a normal bombing run. And just keep an eye on this. This should work. Come on, we need to be turning. There we go. Okay, we're on it. So we're on our way. So let's talk about so they went on to do the thing. So 2240, as I said, Howard synchronizes watches. 2256, the gliders take off. Now they say they took off in 1 minute intervals. Is probably not so true. They were planning to land 1 minute apart, because obviously they're landing at night. I don't think they'll be able to keep a 1 minute separation all the way from here to Caen. So likelihood is they will be in 2 sets of 3, following the lead. And as they got nearer to the coast, they probably then did the 1 minute spacing. Weather-wise, let's look at the weather. D-Day. Well, we know the Eisenhower had postponed D-Day by 24 hours. He due to high winds and all that. To be quite frank, the weather on the 5th wasn't particularly good, but the clouds were broken. Let's move these layers out of the way here. So I don't know what high level layers were like at the time, so we're just gonna it's a bit sensitive. Let's just move this up a bit more. That doesn't look too bad. If I can get this one. For some reason this one doesn't seem to want to. Oh, there we go. The minimum cloud base that they said they required was 2,500 feet. But there was reports on the day that the actual bottoms of the cloud was more like 2,000 feet. So we'll put not 200, 2,000. And we know the tops. Well, the official report says that they were flying at about 6,000 feet into the coast. Dennis Edwards mentions that he felt that the height was more like 4,500 feet. Presumably they're flying dependent on the heights of the clouds. So I think if we put the tops at about 5,000 feet, it might look all right. Density-wise, well, I mean, the cloud's a cloud, but I think they're probably pretty dense. And then we're just going to play with how broken we want it here and how scattered we want it, to how we think. It looked on the day. I think 100% we'll try that. We can have no breakages. I think it's probably... Let's leave it at that for now. Okay, so let's have a look at the time. Well, we know it is 10:56 when they took off. Let's give them... I think it was going on for 50 minutes flight time, so let's give them it's about midnight now, maybe. Okay, so let's have a look at that. We're gonna take off these position lights. Take those off. We'll put on the compass light, and we'll put on the panel lights, and we'll take off these beacon lights. So apologies if you can't see much. So here we go then. We got the full moon, broken clouds, probably base of the clouds is about 2,000, tops of the clouds I'm going to say is about 5,000. It might have been higher. And we know from the US airborne landings on the codenamed Peninsula that the planes there met banks of cloud that dispersed the aircraft. There was no reports of that on the British side of things, but as we'll find out, not all of the gliders get to where they're supposed to be, so there's definitely something that's going to confuse pilots on the way. Of course, we're not going to have lights, so it's all going to be just moonlit. So we're on this leg now, heading towards Farnborough. And then we'll head back down again. Yeah, so the reports were saying it was a moonlit night and patches of cloud. So this is what we got. Stiff breeze down. You can see how I'm good at flying this thing. So we're not going to do that. Okay, so let's give you a good look at that. So we've taken off from Tarrant Rushton, and we're now heading to Farnborough. Now, this is just because I listened to Dennis Edwards's account. You can go, if you look at the Discord channel, you'll be able to see links to the Imperial War Museum, and on that, Dennis Edwards has a series of interviews where he talks about this this mission. And he mentions all this stuff that I'm going to use in this. So he says, as I said, they believe they went up to Reading, and then they went down between Bognor Regis and Worthing. But I think this flight plan kind of makes a little bit of sense. From Howard's diary, he says it was 40 minutes after taking off from Tarrant Rushton. I think it's probably 40 minutes after they formed up over Tarrant Rushton. That makes more sense. Though they're flying a 4-engine Halifax bomber. We're doing probably in the region of 200 knots here. Yeah, we're doing about something like 200 knots. So I'm not sure if it's the same as with the Halifax bomber, especially if you're towing a glider. Dennis Edwards' book was called The Devil's Own Luck. Pegasus Bridge to the Baltic in 1944-45. So they were approaching presumably when they say they're approaching the coast, the coast was spotted maybe. We'll see when we get there how easy it is to spot. Obviously we've got light, so that might be easier. So this looks here like Farnborough coming up, possibly. Let me just have a look. Oh no, maybe a bit further. As you can see, that's a aircraft, a live aircraft. So if you want to, join me live, you can fly along live. You just have to own a copy of Microflight's Soft Flight Simulator 2024. This is on the PlayStation, and it's the European West server. So once we've got the time, let's talk about sum up what we've done. So Monty's got the plan, passes it to Gale. Gale gives Kindersley the mission. Kindersley picks Howard to do this. It's known as a VC job. They know that they've got to land quickly. They can't use paratroopers because it will take too long to muster. They're trying to seize the bridges without them being blown. So they need to get as many troops as possible next to the bridges, take the bridges before they're blown. If they do, they will radio the code word ham and jam. French reconnaissance resistance has been informing the British all the time. So when Howard was at Broadmoor, which was Brigmarston Farmhouse, he had a model built, and they would put down every single detail down to broken windows in this model. And the resistance had reported that they, because it was the cafe there, the Condre Cafe, they heard that basically the switches to blow the bridges were in the pillbox. So the idea was They didn't know how many of these gliders would make it, but when they did, they had a set pattern of play. The first one group would try to seize the bridge, get across to the western side, and another group would take out the pillbox as quickly as possible, and then the remainder would take in the trenches that lined the canal either side. There's an anti-aircraft, I think, gun emplacement on the south side, on the eastern part, and that will come into play later. And so that's the plan. By no means did they believe that they would actually capture these bridges. They definitely expected that they would probably at least one would be blown, because they were carrying basically boats with them in the gliders. So they were prepared to have to form a river or boat crossing at some point. The plan was then the Brigadier Nigel Poet would be parachuting in, not that far behind these guys, to be honest. He was actually going to be in a bunch of I think they call it Abermile, I'll have to check it, aircraft with the pathfinders to put down beacons to guide in the paratroopers and prepare the fields for gliders to come in. So we just done our turn here. We now did a 90-degree turn, and we're on our way now down to Shoreham. When the 7th paratroopers would arrive, they'd be landing within an hour, and their priority mission was to get to the bridge and support Howard as soon as they could. And then they were all there to protect the bridges until they were relieved by Lord Lovett's commandos, who were arriving on Sword Beach, on the eastern flank of Sword Beach, in the morning. And they were expecting, I'm guessing, I can't quite remember the time, but they were planning on being relieved sometime around midday. And we'll look at all this when we get out. So that's what these guys are looking forward to. Now, luckily, in a certain way, because of the weather, the Germans didn't believe that a landing would come. They knew, obviously, the importance of the full moon, but when the storm came through on the 5th, very badly or amateurishly, a lot of the senior German leaders were away in Paris. Rommel had left for Germany for his wife's birthday, so luckily for these guys going in, the response of the Germans weren't as coordinated as they could be. A lot of the initial German responses was because they could, but the 21st Panzer Division couldn't move without orders from Hitler, basically, or Rommel. So that gave them a good a buffer zone at the end of the day. So like I say, we're now approaching the south coast of England. We're heading to Shoreham. It makes sense with this sort of large formations to keep it as simple as possible. So this is why I think the 90-degree turn, then fixing on Shoreham and then heading south, because if we don't in 1944, they won't have these electronic guidance stuff. They obviously would know how to use these things, but there was obviously errors occurred, and it would be easier if you could take as many things that could go wrong away from the pilots. So keeping it simple, stupid, is the old KISS mentality, is probably what was more likely to happen. It also makes sense from the point of view that these aircraft will be flying over the channel, over the invasion fleet. And so they are flying in pre-designated corridors. Presumably there's a corridor for flying in and a corridor for flying out. But what it meant was, if you were coming got to this Shoreham and then you headed south, then anyone on a boat in the channel looking up and seeing all these aircraft flying backwards and forwards, you could just say, look, these anything that's flying directly north-south is Allied. So anything coming from another angle is unlikely to be an Allied aircraft. And that would keep a lot of friendly fire away, because you just by flying north-south would probably protect you from naval gunfire. They had, we learned later as well, that they would have fighter patrols covering certain areas, but over the actual fleet they would use an aircraft, I think it's called the I can't remember which one it is now. It wasn't the Mustang. But it was called a Lightning, I think. Let me just... Yeah, here we go. It's the P-38, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning, and they used that aircraft as a fighter sort of patrol over the fleet, because it had a twin boom tail. So from the sea looking up, it was very distinctive, and therefore they could then fly at different angles, or circling above the Navy, and would be recognized as being Allied. Again, a lot. Some of this is just conjecture, but this is what this is designed to be. Is just having a look at it in the sim to see if things make sense. So we're approaching Shoreham here. And by now we're getting to the 6th of June. So we're now about to take our turn. So below us is Shoreham. So this would be a great place. They could have light signals, a Morse code flash coming from the airfield here, back inland. So aircraft can visually see it. They could probably have a radio beacon. So the aircraft will come along, fly into these things, and they might use this one again. They could use Bognor Regis. They could use it different places. They may even have one set up on the coast and not on the airfield to provide these corridors. So you line up with this, you fly over, and because it's the beach, the coast is probably an easy place to spot from the air. It's a good fix to get the navigation, and then now head south, and you know, even roughly you're heading now to the moon. So as long as you know, if you get completely confused, you could just use the moon as a target at this time. Ignore these lights coming up. These are it's not a glitch in the flight simulator. This is a wind farm off the coast. So we are heading south, and we're now on the mission proper. So the Halifaxes were pulling these gliders. Let's talk about one of the gliders, and let's talk about glider 1. Glider 1, actually I'll bring this up on the Discord. Dennis Edwards had an actual list, and I've got them all here, of all the people who are in the gliders. Glider 2, all of them just listed. So you can come along here and check out all these names all the way down. Glider 1, so the Halifax was piloted by Wing Commander Duda, and the pilots of Glider 1 was Staff Sergeant Jim Warwick and Staff Sergeant John Ainsworth, and they're from the Glider Pilot Regiment. And as I said, these guys are really prized. John Ainsworth was the co-pilot, so he's the guy who will be calling out the times when won't get released. So in the back, as I say, there's 28 other guys. So there was Major John Howard and his Batman, who was Corporal Tappenden. And in his glider, he had Lieutenant Den Brotheridge's platoon. Now it was platoon 25, but for the purposes of this operation, they were simply known as number 1 platoon. So there's 6 platoons. I believe this was so that they could shout their platoon numbers, or they might have even given them a code name, but they could shout their names, platoons, so that they don't get confused with each other. And this is one of the things that happened during their exercises, is that they were deemed to have shot on each other in the confusion of night. So they went charging in, and they would just shout number 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all the time. And so if you weren't shouting a number out, you tended to get shot. And I'll just list these guys. So Sergeant Ollis was in this one, and Corporals Kane, Webb and Bailey. Lance Corporal Packwood, Minns. We got Privates Barlam, Bates, Borley, Chamberlain, Dennis Edwards, the guy who's written the book, Gardner, Gray, O'Donnell, Wally Parr. We'll probably hear more about him later. Tilbury, Watson, White, Windsor and Jackson. And also in the glider is a contingency of sappers from the 24th Field Company. These are Corporal Watson and Sapper Danson, Ramsey, Wheeler and Yates. And Glider 2 was Lieutenant David Wood's platoon, with elements again of sappers. Glider 3 was Lieutenant Richard Smith's platoon. Glider 4 was Tony Hooper's platoon, and it contained the second in command of the company, Captain Priday. So Glider 4, 5, and 6 were going to go towards the River Orne Bridge, which is later known as Horsa, and we'll find out that only 2 of these gliders will eventually get there. Glider 5 was had Lieutenant Todd Sweeney's platoon, and Glider 6 was Lieutenant Dennis Fox platoon. Dennis Fox and Sweeney were the guys that Howard had chosen from B Company to join D Company to boost their ranks during this time. So currently coming over the channel then. So see, this has been going on for an hour. This is probably going to be a good time. We'll call that part 4, and we'll come back in a second. With part 5 of our look into the Operation Tonga on D-Day 1943.